Hi everyone, thank you for inviting me. The United Nations in 2015 set forth 17 sustainability goals to be reached by 2030. UNESCO is one of the UN agencies tasked with implementing these goals. I think the goals are brilliant. Taken together, if they are achieved, we will have a perfect world. But I'm left wondering how this agenda will be accomplished. Who will make the decisions, and by what process? Who will hold the decision makers accountable? My talk this afternoon will focus on goal number 10, which seeks to reduce inequality within and among countries. I will address inequality within the United States, what it looks like, and who has the power to enforce it and to change it. We're familiar with the gross and visible inequalities of income and wealth, and in housing, education, and hiring. Let's take a look at the ways these inequalities play out in ordinary life and on our own doorstep. Vassar College, right across the river, has a superior institution of learning, but it's a walled fortress. It keeps students in, the population of Poughkeepsie out. Who made that decision? Lincoln Center was built in the 1960s in a neighborhood of housing projects on the west side of Manhattan. It was built with its back to the projects instead of opening out to the neighborhood. Who decided to build this celebration of the arts as a symbol of inequality? As the auto industry grew to dominate the American economy, highways were built to accommodate cars and to encourage more and more auto transport. Many of these highways divided cities and robust neighborhoods of workers and people of color. Brooklyn, Sunset Park, the Bronx, Atlanta. Who made the decisions? Would the UN be allowed to have input into future decisions of this nature? Reducing maternal mortality worldwide is one of the UN's health goals. Here in the US, it's an issue of equality. Maternal mortality in the US exceeds that of all other developed capitalist countries. We know how to keep mothers from dying in childbirth, so why are they dying? Who is dying? Black mothers at a rate of 3 to 4 times the rate of white mothers. They're dying from discriminatory health care, environmental racism, and income and wealth inequality. The U.S. has the highest per capita prison population in the world, and the population of those involved in the criminal justice system is disproportionately African American and other people of color. The chair of Boeing is unlikely to go to prison for the deaths of 346 passengers on faulty planes. The leaders of ExxonMobil are not in prison for ecocide, for falsifying their own research on fossil fuel causing global heating. Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos remains free, despite young people's crushing student loan debt that can't be repaid and can never be forgiven. How can the UN Sustainability Program influence prison reform in the U.S.? We know that there's great inequality in the education system. Here's a relatively new aspect: surveillance of students of color who were already subject to more searches and harsher punishments than white students. According to the Brennan Center for Justice, school districts in the U.S. are increasingly investing in surveillance technology to monitor their students, particularly students of color, potentially criminalizing private and normal behavior and speech. Under the guise of preventing violence, these methods are not only unreliable, but also divert resources away from enrichment programs that could help mitigate inequality in education. For all these examples, those with the power to make decisions are those who own the banks, the corporations, and the wealth, as well as the ability to buy political influence. The question for our time is, who will change this gross inequality? And the answer goes to the heart of our unequal economic system. The UN, which named the global problems and set forth goals, doesn't challenge the international profit-driven economic system of capitalism as being an underlying cause of global and domestic inequality. So 4 years after setting the goal of reducing inequality, let's track our progress. Federal data released this year show that in 2018, the nation's income inequality reached the highest level since the U.S. Census Bureau began measuring it 50 years ago. In 2018, the average pay of CEOs at America's top firms hit $17 million, an increase of over 1,000% since 1978. By contrast, the typical worker's wage grew by only 11.9% in the same period. In 1965, the ratio of CEO to worker pay stood at 20 to 1. In 2018, it was 278 to 1, but at many corporations, it's even higher. Walmart, 1,000 to 1. McDonald's, 2,000 to 1. Gap, 3,500 to 1. And the median income of U.S. households declined in 2018 from the 3 previous years. U.S. economic inequality is even greater in terms of wealth. 3 U.S. billionaires, Jeff Bezos, Warren Buffett, and Bill Gates, possess as much wealth as half the people in the United States combined. I want to be optimistic about the UN's and UNESCO's sustainability goals, but the U.S. pulled out of UNESCO in 2018. So how will UNESCO enforce its goals if the most powerful, richest country in the world isn't engaged? My own point of view is that capitalism should be replaced with socialism, but at the very least it should be reformed. Taxes raised on the wealthy, money out of politics, corporations regulated, housing prices capped, affordable housing built, wages livable and guaranteed, unions promoted, immigration humanized, education and healthcare free, energy renewable. The UN goals are an impressive and worthy guide, but we can't depend on the voluntary goodwill of the forces who created inequality to end it. Social movements are needed to make this happen, and they are missing from the UN's agenda. They need to unite and wrest power from those now in power and assert new power on behalf of the common good. Thank you.